Hey, what's going on? Ninth Age. This is Obsidian Anubis, and I'm back with another Ninth Age battle report. This is Game 4 at the OFCC 2018, the 13th Border Army, aka Empire of Sunsol, versus Highborn Elves. So just a quick recap. This is the fourth game in a 5-game 2-day event. The first game was up against Vermin Swarm, excuse me, and it ended up being a slight defeat in my against me. I had the defeat. My second game was against Saurian Ancients, where I had a slight victory. And then the third game, I played Warriors of the Dark Gods, and it was a massive defeat, 19-1, pretty bad. So that was the end of day 1, so now we're on to day 2, and I ended up matching up against Highborn Elves. I haven't played Highborn Elves yet in the new 9th Age, and I actually haven't played this opponent yet either, so that's really cool. Alright, so let's go and look at the army. So my opponent has 5 Lancers over here on the left, 5 Grey Watchers hiding in the ruins, a unit of Lion Guard, and then next to them are 2 big blocks of Spearmen. The one on the left has his Prince and General in it. The one on the right has 2 Mages, one of which is a Wizard Master, the other one is a Wizard Apprentice, I believe. And then over here on the right flank, my opponent's left flank, my right flank, is a big block of Sword Masters, and then over here on the very far right, 7 Grey Watchers who scouted out. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and warn you now. This is going to be a somewhat short battle report. Again, because there was a tournament, I didn't take a whole lot of pictures, so I will do my best to walk you through the game. Alright, so over here on the left flank, I ended up getting first turn, and I moved up fairly aggressively. Moved my Flagellants with my Prelate up, screened behind my Militia. On the right, I moved up my Imperial Guard with my General. The objective was hold the center, and it was battle line, marching column. We can hold a couple units in reserve. So in reserve, I have my 13th Auxiliary, which are just 20 heavy infantry. You can also see the corner here of my second unit of Flagellants kind of coming around the rock. Unfortunately, I had this big massive rock in the middle of my deployment, so it made it very difficult. Over here on the right flank, I moved up my Halberdiers pretty aggressively. My opponent was behind the hill, so he couldn't charge them on his next turn, so I moved them up pretty aggressively. And then I just have my light infantry with crossbows hiding in the woods. In magic phase, I actually managed to get a pretty good magic phase and managed to kill enough of the Grey Watchers on the right to cause a panic test, and my opponent failed, so they ended up fleeing off the board. So that was fantastic. I also managed to get the Cosmology +1 aim on my crossbowmen, and they ended up shooting and taking off, I think, 3 or 4 of the Lion Guards. And then, yeah, this is kind of an overall picture of what my army battle line looks like at the end of turn 1. So my opponent's turn 1, he moved up also fairly aggressively. You can see both of us have fairly aggressive lists. My opponent has no shooting minus the Grey Watchers, and I just have my unit of crossbowmen and militia. So you can see how they moved up like this. I'm a little worried with my Halberdiers. Those 2 units, I mean, they wouldn't be able to take on the Great Swords or the Grey Sword Masters no matter what. And against the Spearmen they could, but not if they have Sword Masters in the flank. So I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do there. So we're going to go ahead and jump straight to my turn 2. So I end up charging my Great Swords or my Imperial Guard into my opponent's White Lions, hoping I could defeat them, break through, and get out of the way. I move up my militia on the left to just chaff up the spears and kind of move in my Flagellants behind there. I move my second unit of Flagellants over here on the right to start getting into where they are going to be needed to fight some of those spears and sword masters. And then I have my Halberdiers. I just kind of tilted them so that my opponent couldn't get a flank charge with either of his 2 units, so they have to do a front charge for both of them. In combat, it went really, really well, and then it followed by really, really bad. So the part that went really, really well is my Imperial Guard managed to break the White Lions. I did lose 6 or so, but I did manage to kill all but 4, and they only ran 3 inches, so that was fantastic. Bad news is I pursued only 2 inches, which left my flank completely vulnerable to the citizen spears there with the Prince. Had I rolled like 2 more inches, I would have been cleared, and my opponent wouldn't have been able to get that charge. But as it stands now, my Imperial Guard are in a terrible position. So if we jump to my opponent's turn, you can see my opponent took full advantage of my flank and charged the Citizen Spears with the Prince into the flank of my Imperial Guard, rallied the White Lions. He also charged the other unit of Spearmen into my Flagellants and the Swordmasters into my Halberdiers, which is not going to go well. And just to show you how well it did not go, this is after combat. So let's do a pre-picture. So it looks like my opponent has 4 Swordmasters in the back rank, and now he has 1. So I managed to kill 3 whole Great Swordmasters, so yay me. And in return, I ended up losing roughly 20 Halberdiers. I actually am still steadfast. I have 1 more rank than my opponent just because my opponent had few Swordmasters, relatively. So I actually did manage to stay around for this round, but I know for sure next round that this unit is going to be gone. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot of pictures. I don't have any pictures of turn 3, so we're going to jump straight to turn 4. So this is how combat's going so far, which, as you can see, is not well. My great Imperial Guard have been routed by the Citizen Spears and the White Lions. The Lancers, followed by the Grey Watchers, have successfully charged into my Flagellants there on the left, and while they've both lost, they managed to hold my unit up long enough that he could get to where he needed to get, and well, basically finishing off my Imperial Guard before I could get my extra troops over there. You can see in the center of the board, my Flagellants are dying. They've killed a number of Citizen Spears, but I mean they're just not doing enough damage, unfortunately, against that unit. So then we're going to go ahead and jump into the future to turn 5 now, and you can kind of see how things have wrapped up. So over there on the left flank is my 1 remaining prelate. So my opponent charged my Flagellants. I can't remember if it was 1 round of combat or 2 rounds of combat, and killed all the Flagellants, leaving only the prelate. So, the prelate then broke from combat, successfully rallied, and then my opponent successfully charged him again. So that's not going well. My opponent, I think I ended up declaring a challenge, and his prince and my prelate went into a challenge. Surprisingly, I didn't get wiped out. I think the first round of combat. I think I actually made it to 2 rounds of combat before I died, but overall I did die. In the center, you can see that my poor wizard has been charged both in the front by Citizen Spears and then the flank by the Swordmasters. That does not go well, as you can imagine. My wizard basically just blows up. My opponent overruns with the Citizen Spears to get them farther away from my auxiliary unit there, which is on the right-hand side of this picture. However, in my turn 6, I managed to land a long bomb charge with those troops into the rear of my opponent's Citizen Spears with the wizard, and I actually managed to break them and then catch them and wipe them out. So I do manage to get quite a few points there at the very end by wiping out 1 unit of Citizen Spears with both the Wizard Master and the Wizard Apprentice. So that actually nabbed me quite a few points. Unfortunately, I don't have a lot left on the board either. I have my readers at the front of the top of this picture, and then I have more than half of my auxiliary unit still alive. But other than that, I think most of my units have been completely wiped out. I've lost all my characters, so it's a pretty telling point-wise. Not to mention, my opponent also managed to get the secondary objective. I lost most of my scoring units fairly early on in the game, and so couldn't really contest the middle of the board at all. So my opponent won the second objective. So it was a high elf victory, and ended up being an 18-2 after secondary objective points. So it was a 15-5, then 3 points, so 18-2. So it was better than my battle against the Dark Gods. That was 19-1, so better, but marginally better. Still a massacre. But, and here's the but, this game was fantastic. I enjoyed this game immensely. Actually, I've enjoyed all my games immensely, even though I've been massacred twice, beaten another time, and then had a slight victory one time. I've been having a fantastic time at this tournament. I brought a very melee oriented list, and all of my battles have been blood fests, with both opponents just throwing in the troops into melee. My troops, because the Imperial Sunsol is not the best, so that's probably why I'm losing, but that's okay because I'm having a great time while I lose. Yeah, so that's really all I have to say about this battle report. My opponent was a great guy, and his army was fantastic. I really enjoyed playing him, and I hope to get to play him again and his army again in the future. Um, I have one more battle report for Game 5, which will be coming up. If you guys would like to leave any comments or anything in the uh, comment section below, go for it if you have any questions. Um, I will do an overall tournament section at the end of my next video, so kind of go over that and final standings, more or less. Um, yeah, as always, hit like and subscribe, and game on.